There are some things in life that were never intended for us to carry alone. You can talk about that physically, of course. That's an easy analogy. There are some things that we just can't lift up. We're just not physically capable of lifting certain things up on our own. We need people to come around us and to help us with that burden. But I think what is true physically is all the more true emotionally, spiritually. Just that emotional context of a fear that we have. You know, they always say the greatest fear is speaking in front of people. And I agree, that's a great fear. But I think when you search below the surface and kind of scratch below that, I think that what we're all really fearful of is fearful of creating this isolation ourselves. Or may I just say it this way? I think that inside of all of us, we have this fear of being alone. And for whatever degree that is, I think that the reason that is certainly is because God's created us to live in community. I mean, He's designed ways for us to engage with other human beings. I mean, when God created, He said that we were good, and then when Eve was created, it was very good. And there was this design by our Creator that we ought to live life in togetherness, in community. I want to read real quick out of Philippians chapter 4. I'm going to start in verse 6, and it has this whole kind of fear context with it. Paul says, do not be anxious, do not be fearful about anything. But in every single thing that we have or we think, it is by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let our requests be made known to God. Let Him know how we really feel, he's saying. And then I love verse 7. It says, and the peace of God, which surpasses all of our human understanding. It says that will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ. I have this analogy, and I've always struggled with this until I was able to kind of come with the grips. I'm a very visual person, and when I get the idea of my fears and the things that have gone on inside of my life, whether it be my past or even fears of my future, and especially the fears of my present, I get this idea that it's very easy for me to trust God, to give God the things that I also have my hands in, that I can also kind of control. If God isn't living up to His end of the deal, if you will, then I can kind of come along and kind of help God out with those things. I mean, those things, it's very easy for me to trust God with those things. But the things that's difficult for me to trust God with are those things that are completely outside of my hand. And when I think about the hand, isn't it amazing that God created our hand with the idea that we can grip things? And I think that when I think about my hand, I think about the things in my life that I really just have a solid grip on, and it's very difficult for me to actually let go of those things, whether it be to communicate those or confess those to my friends in Christ or outside of Christ, or whether it's be to confess those and really trust those to God. And so the imagery that I want you to just think about in your own life is, in what ways what ways am I, clenching onto those things that were never intended for me to carry on my own, and yet I'm extremely fearful of letting go of those things. And so I've got this new kind of reality, this new life that I'm trying to live, and it's trying to live with what I call a palm open posture. It's literally just taking the things that I fear, no matter what they are, and especially this aloneness thought, and just really entrusting it to the God who can make all things new and who can really be trusted with everything of who I am. I just kind of want to end this section, have you guys just meditate and think on this too. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 6 through 7, it says in this whole context of fear and anxiousness, God says to humble ourselves. In other words, let go. Just turn our palms up to the Father and humble ourselves, realizing that there are some things that we can't carry on our own. And he says, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so we lift ourselves under the mighty hand of God, so that all at proper time He may exalt you. In other words, that He may lift us up. He may take His open palm and join His with ours. And then it says in verse 7, casting all of our fears, our anxieties, our aloneness, all of our stuff, as we cast that on Him with our open palms, we can do so because He literally cares for us. He cares for us. Isn't that an amazing thing? The God of the universe who holds the galaxies in the palms of His hands He cares for people like you and me. I just want to invite you to join me in this idea, this concept of literally lifting our palms to the Father, who indeed is the one who cares for you.